As many of us may know, Volvo has been making the XC90 for over 2 decades, and it certainly has been more of a success than not. And since the original P2 XC90, Volvo has retained their formula by keeping the same platform for as long as possible, while tweaking it every few years to keep it hip and desirable for the ever-changing SUV market. And without surprise, Volvo has done exactly this for the 2025.5 XC90 to run alongside the all-electric EX90. And while I do like the EX90, I personally like the XC90 more. So today we'll be getting up close and personal with all the little tweaks that Volvo has made to this already wonderful 3-row SUV, the new Volvo XC90. So welcome friends to the new XC90. This is the SPA generation of XC90. These came out in 2015 for the 2016 model year. And just like the P2 XC90, the SPA XC90 went through a few different faces over the years. And of course, this new 25.5 XC90 is the first to show a substantial difference. The headlights are slimmer while still incorporating the Thor's hammer headlight design. These new models lose fog lights because they say the headlights are good enough. And the grille is new as well to show off Volvo's updated design language. The XC90 was also given slightly darker taillights, but just like how it's always been, it still is the good old XC90. Not the P2, but it's still an XC90. And when the XC90 first came out, this actually was in a league of its own besides a few SUVs. Now, the luxury SUV segment has completely blown up. If you're looking at the new XC90, you're most certainly looking at other SUVs in this segment like the Acura MDX, the Audi Q7, the BMW X7 maybe, Mercedes-Benz GLS, Lexus's TX, and I guess you could say even the Infiniti QX60. Once again, this XC90 is brought to you by my friends at Ourisman Volvo VW of Bethesda, Maryland. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be looking at this thing today. It's a 2025 XC90 T8 Ultra in the beautiful Mulberry Red. I really did try to find this color, and I am a little bit excited to say I'm matching the car today because I'm wearing my Mulberry Red on blonde interior. So the Ultra trim is the highest trim level for this new XC90, but this one does have the additional active chassis with air suspension, 4-corner air suspension, and this one also has the Bowers & Wilkins audio system as well, which bring the factory MSRP of this thing to just under $87,000. But of course, this one has a little bit of a dealership fee sprinkled on top, bringing this one to about $88,500. Once again, Volvo has restructured their trim levels for 25.5. We first start with the XC90 Core, then we move up to the XC90 Plus, and then the XC90 Ultra like this one that starts at $81,000. Just like the past few years, Volvo has allowed you to choose 3 different powertrains for the petrol-powered XC90. We first start at the B5 that only makes about 247 horsepower, then the B6 that makes 295 horsepower, and of course today we have the T8. All of these again use the same 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, but each one uses a different concoction of battery packs and electric motors to give you each power figure. Even though things may feel a little bit better buttoned down, things really haven't changed. This is still the same 2-liter inline 4-cylinder that we've seen in every other new Volvo nowadays. This engine itself is only paired to the front wheels and it makes 312 horsepower, but because this one is the T8, it has an electric motor in the rear that gives us a total system output of 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque. This engine is paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and because this is the T8, it doesn't use a mechanical all-wheel drive system. The gas engine again only powers the front wheels, while the electric motor in the back powers the rear wheels. You can configure how the all-wheel drive system works depending on which drive mode you're in, but it really won't be as capable as the mechanical all-wheel drive system that you can find on the B5 and B6. That's just my nerdy self saying that because most of the people driving these things won't go off-road, so it doesn't matter. As far as fuel economy is concerned for XC90s, the T8 will of course be the superior model. Volvo estimates the T8 to do about 27 to 30 mpg combined. That's not that bad considering this thing can still get to 60 miles an hour in about 5 seconds. You could get around 33 miles of electric range on this thing, but of course, if that battery goes out, you can rely on the gas engine. Then it just acts like a normal hybrid. And then when it comes to charging your T8, Volvo does thankfully include a level 1 charger. That will take about 5 to 6 hours to charge from empty to full. Remember, it is a small battery pack. You only get about 30 miles. You can also use a level 2 charger and charge this a little bit quicker, but this does not support fast charging, so it doesn't do level 3. Since this is still the same XC90, it still sits at 195 inches long, making it 6 inches longer than the original P2 XC90, 3 inches shorter than the current Acura MDX, and 8 inches shorter than the Lexus TX. Because this one is the Ultra trim, it's riding on these 21-inch alloy wheels. Of course, various other models can get smaller or even 22-inch wheels if you want. For 25.5, Volvo said that they slightly tweaked the suspension for models without the air suspension, but models with the air suspension like this one, it's the same system. A strong suit of the XC90 has always been cargo volume because these things are so practical. This new XC90 will never be as good as the original because it doesn't have a split tailgate, but at least we have a power tailgate that opens quickly now. Back here we have 12.5 cubic feet of volume, still very usable, and it's even more than the original. Can't complain about that. If you fold the second row seat down, we get 35.6 cubic feet of volume. Even better, a little bit smaller than the P2, but still very usable. And if you fold the second and third row down, we get 85 cubic feet of volume, which is pretty comparable to the original XC90. I almost forgot to mention you can get your XC90 in either a 6 or 7 passenger configuration. This one is the 6 passenger. Because this model has air suspension, Volvo gave us 2 buttons to either lower or raise the rear. It doesn't really move that much, so I don't see me using that, but it does make it a little bit easier to get in and out. There's also a decent amount of underfloor storage in this as well. We do not have a spare tire. And of course, because this is Volvo, there's many bag hooks in here, there's a power outlet, and it is well lit. We also have a power tailgate that closes the trunk, and if you want to tow with your XC90, Volvo says regardless of what model you choose, you can tow 5,000 pounds. Getting in the third row has thankfully been an easy feat as far as XC90s go. In the old ones there was a lever on the side here, but now we just have a little lever on the top. The new ones you really do have to manhandle the thing to slide though, but it does slide out of the way. If you're a little kid, you might not be able to do this. The first thing I notice as I sit back here is actually how soft the bottom of the seats are. The back is soft too, they're pretty comfortable. Of course, only 2 people can fit back here. If I slide on this side of the XC90, this rear seat is all the way back in its tracks and my knees are just barely touching the back of the seat, and there's still some space to slide this middle seat forward. If I sit straight and stretch, my hair will brush up against the ceiling, but otherwise it's not too bad. As a third row passenger, I do have air vents, thankfully, and a cup holder on each side. Each passenger also has a little storage compartment so you can hide trash in your friend's car, and then when he cleans it out, he can get mad. But compared to a lot of third rows that I've been in, especially recently, this is certainly more comfortable than not. As we get into this second row seat of the XC90, it is pretty nice back here. Welcome to the interior of this. Thankfully, we have more space back here. Again, first of all, I'm 5'9", and you can see the driver's seat is in my driving position. I can fit my feet under the seat here, and I have good legroom, and I can slide this forward like this, or have a little bit more space. Because this one is the 6-passenger model, you can see we just have 2 captain's seats in the middle here, and we don't have any center console or anything, but we do have 2 nifty armrests that are adjustable. I really feel like I'm in an airplane back here, and I like how they did this. They built the cup holders into the armrests. Of course, there's other cup holders in here. I like that a lot. I feel like I'm in an airplane or a train. In terms of other amenities, we do have a rear zone for the climate. I believe this one has quad zone climate control. We also have heated rear seats. Below all that, we have 2 USB Type-C ports, many more cup holders. I don't have anything to complain about back here. This one also has the big panoramic moonroof, and the rest of the interior itself feels well appointed. Everything that I've touched so far feels of substance. The second row passengers even have these very luxurious peasant blockers as well, so you can see people, well, so you can avoid people that are driving XC90 B5s. We're now ready to experience the powertrain of this XC90 T8. First of all, the key fob is the same for 25.5. It's Volvo's modern key fob. Because of this, we have the smart key access system, so this can stay anywhere inside the XC90, and all we have to do is put our foot on the brake and twist the start-stop knob to go. So I certainly have enjoyed being in here. It really isn't that different from the pre-facelift XC90. I do, upon initial impressions, see the changes. First of all is this new screen. It's been updated to be more hip with the times once again, but we'll get into that in just a moment. You can see this has the 360 view camera with the backup camera as well. It's very easy to park. Right now you can see in parking lots and in neighborhoods, this thing will roll around in EV mode, especially if it has charge. The battery in this one doesn't have any charge, so this is just working like a normal hybrid instead of a plug-in hybrid. But in this normal hybrid mode, we can see how the power is once I let these bots go. I have people in front of me, so I can't really go, but it's very smooth, it's very quiet. It feels like the engine is quieter now, thankfully, because I really am not a fan of the sound of this engine. I don't feel like dealing. It is very easy to drive this thing. It has very light, effortless steering. You know, every new car has electronic power steering nowadays, but makes it very easy to drive. It still feels like the old XC90, just the seating position, the way how the dash is laid out, and just the way how the thing feels. It does feel like the old one. It won't make up for it, especially if you're a purist like me, but it does feel like an XC90, and I like that. They didn't change the identity of this too much. Hopefully, if we have a little bit of an opening, we can see how this power is in hybrid mode. Shit. It's very quiet. It gets to speed quickly. It's more quiet than the old 2-liter. It just feels like they put more sound deadening in this. Thank you, Volvo. This thing just really eats the road. It feels nice. Even with these 21-inch alloy wheels, it has a nice ride to it. It's not too floaty. The air suspension does a good job. We will see how, hopefully, on this faster road, how the power is. Most of the time, I know people driving XC90s don't drive them full throttle, but it's nice to see what they can do, at least. I can quickly go into power mode right now. I like that you can quickly toggle things. It's quiet. Unfortunately, I don't have much open road, but it's quiet, good acceleration, it's strong. Now we can talk about the interior of this. I'll go back into hybrid mode. You can feel the suspension soften a bit because it has the active chassis. But yes, welcome to the blonde interior of the new XC90. I've quite liked how Volvo has done their interiors recently. They are more minimalistic than not. This uses the Google infotainment system. Volvo started to recently do this the past 2 or 3 years. So it pretty much is like having a Google tablet inside your car. Makes it very convenient. This is easier to get used to than the electric Volvos because everything is more traditional. We have the same 3-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel that we've had for a few years. On the left side, we have buttons that control the cruise control and pilot assist functions. This thing does do semi-autonomous driving, which is nice. And on the right side of the wheel, we have some audio controls as well as some controls that configure the information display in the gauges. There's not a whole lot to configure in the gauges, but you can see a reasonable amount of information. The gauges do change depending on what drive mode you're in, but mainly the tachometer. Behind the steering wheel, we do have normal stocks in this car. The left side, we have the headlight controls. Thankfully, they are automatic. And the right side, we have the wiper controls, which are also rain sensing automatic. I like that all the switchgear in here is very easy to reach. All 4 windows are auto up and down. The mirror controls are easy to find and easy to use. We have 3-person memory for the driver and passenger side seat. The seats are a strong suit of the XC90. You can't review an XC90 without praising the seats. I will say that they have definitely gotten more firm over the years, but these are pretty good. They're heated, cooled, and it does a pretty good job at turning tight. It's quick. It's faster than my V8, that's for sure. I don't want to get too distracted though. These seats are very comfortable. The driver and passenger side seats are heated and cooled. I also forgot to mention the steering wheel is heated as well. But these seats offer an infinite amount of support. You can also adjust the seats in many ways because of this Ultra model, so they really are comfortable. Some models can do massaging seats as well, but this model doesn't have that. I really do like driving XC90s because they are really one of the safest vehicles on the road, just like other Volvos. And I know a lot of new cars are safe nowadays, but it just feels good to be in one of these. These are great all-weather vehicles. Now, as we're in this little neighborhood, we can look at the center display because that's the main thing with this vehicle. Again, it is a Google-based system, so it actually is pretty good in that regard. I haven't had any problems with connectivity. It still does Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Maybe within the first few minutes of driving this, you might notice a few bugs here and there, but once the thing warms up, it really does get better. People in this area are really clueless. I really do love how easy this thing is to drive around, even though this is a pretty big SUV, especially for European standards. There's just a feeling that you get from driving a Volvo. It's not the feeling you get from driving an X7 or a GLE or a GLS, but there's just some soothing nature about Volvos that I like, and I hope that you, if you're watching, you appreciate that as well. This does have the Google Assistant because it is powered by Google, so you can do things like, "Hey Google, when is sunset today?"
Today, the sun will set at 6:01 p.m.
Wow, in about a half hour. But yeah, it is very nice. You can also do, "Hey Google, I'm a little bit chilly."
Alright, turning up the temperature.
You can do things like that.
That might not have worked everywhere.
But you can see we have 4-zone climate control in this thing. We do lose the buttons. I don't want all this fan speed manual. 1. I don't want all this noise. That's the problem, you know. I like to do things myself. I'm going to put myself in power mode. The suspension goes down a bit. This thing, like the chassis just firms up. It feels more dynamic. This is not a sporty SUV, but we can get in front of this Cadillac. It's quick, great power. It's not fast. It's not mind-blowingly fast, but it's just good power. XC90 doesn't need to be ridiculously powerful when it comes to acceleration. That's not something that I would expect from it. Again, the main thing with this interior is the lack of buttons. The climate control, pretty much none of the buttons besides the defrosters interact with the climate control. Volvo does provide us with a little wireless charger in front of the shifter, but wireless chargers really don't work that well. I'd rather just plug in with the USB-C ports that are in the center console in this thing. As you can see, because this one is the T8, it has the crystal orifice shifter, which is a signature of these T8 XC90s. Just like the old XC90s, Volvo didn't really have to do too much to make this one better. It takes bumps well, even on like jittery roads. As I get back to Volvo HQ, look at this shit. Nonsense. Throttle response is good. You can see all the types of tomfoolery that you have to deal with in this area. But this feels nimble to just toss around in the city, even though it is a big vehicle. That's something I like about the XC90. The older ones feel even more nimble and tossable. I'm just glad that they didn't change too much and mess this thing up. And thankfully the EX90 is a good progression, and it does feel just like an electric version of this car, but I certainly would rather just have this car. And that, my friends, was hopefully a good gander and a deep dive at the new 25.5 XC90. Let me know in the comments if you have a new 25.5 or any XC90, because you know I love every XC90. Before I start saying XC90, 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 because someone in the comments didn't like how I said XC90, 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 XC90. So before I go XC90 again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, peeps. XC90, 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 XC90.